Hello, you're welcome to another episode of The 7 Show with Lanre Afod. Thank you very much for always being there. Thank you for watching this program from time to time. Today, I'll be giving you 7 parental tips. I'll be giving you 7 tips as a parent that you could use and you should watch out for when you have kids. I don't have any kid yet, but I hope to have a kid very soon. So it's not only for parents, it's also for the singles, it's also for those that are just getting married and those that are anticipating and praying that they're going to become parents sometime soon. Okay, number 1, the first thing I want to tell you about your children is warn your daughter not to sit down too long on anyone's lap. Be their uncle or your friend or anybody, any male should not take your daughter on their laps for too long. When your daughter is just too comfortable with an individual, she's always hugging him, always jumping around him, they're getting too close. You have to be very careful. You have to warn your daughter. You have to make them draw back a little bit. There's a way you do it. You don't let them feel it is evil, but you make them know it's not right for them to just be there. Especially when they're getting too fond of an individual, you have to keep warning them. Keep an eye on your children every time. Not even an eye. Keep your 2 eyes open when it comes to children matters. You know, evil is in the heart of a child. It is the rod of discipline that you use to drive it out. At the same time, you see, it gets to a point that they are getting too relaxed with an individual, they're getting too comfortable with one person or another. You have to keep warning them, don't sit down too much on a guy's lap. No matter how close the person is, no matter what kind of relative the person is, beware. That's number 1 point. Number 2, avoid getting dressed in front of your children. Especially when they become like 3 years, between 2, 3, 4 years old, like 4 years old, don't even do it. Don't dress in front of them. For the men, don't dress in front of the girl. And for the women, don't dress in front of the boy. A lot of us grew in a large family where the aunties come there, your aunties, your mommy, everybody just comes and undress in front of you. You don't see it as anything. Let me tell you, these days, avoid such things because it puts some things in their mind. It makes them get too exposed so early. And as they see it live, they are also seeing it on TV. So you have to be careful. Don't dress in front of your children when they are growing old. Avoid it as much as you can. That's my number 2 point. Number 3, when your child goes out to play with a friend, always try to find out what kind of play they played when you were not there. You know, you can't be always there for your children. You can't be on every scene. When they get to school, when they've gone away to school and they're back at home, you ask them what they went through in school, what they were taught, and during the leisure time, during the break period, what kind of plays they did, what kind of games they played, no matter what kind of play. I remember when we were young, we used to do daddy and mommy play. We'll be hiding under the covers. We'll use blankets to cover ourselves. Let's assume that we are kissing. Let's just play like mommy and daddy. Okay, the children, oh yeah, go and check the food on the fire. We may send some people out. Then daddy and mommy will be under the blankets. Sometimes we are doing boju and all those kind of things. It could be very dangerous. These days, their knowledge is very high. They are moving. This is a jet age. In fact, they are moving with speed. So you have to be very careful. When they come back, when your children come back, ask them. Take time to ask them what kind of play they did. You see, these days, children sexually abuse themselves. So you've got to be very careful. You've got to ask them. Ask. Be friends with your children. Let them feel free. There are tactical ways to go about it. You say, oh, I know you enjoyed your outing today. So what was it like? What was Tunde like? What was Charles like? What did he do? How did he enjoy? Did you play? What kind of songs did he sing? And all that. Some children are very exposed because of the family where they grew up. And some, you've raised your children very well. They don't watch some kind of movies, they don't do some kind of things. But when they go outside and mix up with other people, the peer pressure and all of that begins to come in. So you've got to be very careful. As children, you have to instill the kind of culture that you want them to have on the inside of them so that they grow up with it and grow up better. Do you know what I mean? That's it. Stay there. I'm coming back for the next point. Now, my number 4 point. When a child complains about a particular adult, be it male or female, take up the case. Don't ever keep quiet about it. Let them know that you can defend them at every point in time. Little children have a way, they believe their daddies are the Superman and their mommies are the Superwoman. So they always believe in you. That is why you hear them saying things like, I'll tell my mommy for you, I'll tell my daddy for you, because they believe their father is the strongest man in the world. You don't have to go outside to fight because your child has complained about somebody, but when your child begins to complain about a particular adult, find out what he's saying. Take your time. Like some people will be like, go and sit down, just don't disturb me, don't disturb me. He or she has complained about somebody. I don't like what uncle this does. I don't like the way he used to talk. Find out what exactly is the point. Sometimes they mumble their words trying to explain to you. Take your time. Let him or her explain what uncle so has done or what their neighbor has done. Listen to them. Fight for children. It helps them to grow well. It helps them to develop more confidence in you. It helps them to become more friends to you, and they become open to you. They're never going to have problems if you raise your child that way. At number 5 today on how to train your children, the things to be careful about when it comes to raising your children is, charity begins at home, so you've got to be careful about every material that comes into their hands. The kind of blacklist all materials that can detriment their moral growth, that can help them to grow up well and to become better people for the society or in the society. So the kind of movies they watch, the kind of music they listen to, these days all over the TV stations are bomb shaking, uncensored kind of videos all over the place. But you've got to be careful. When it comes to children, you've got to be careful about the kind of movies you allow them to watch. There are so very many nasty movies all over the place. Soft porn, hard porn, they are so easy. More so, it's on the phones. Remember that when you give them phones, they have access to internet. Once they just begin to browse. As a matter of fact, do you know that children seem to understand these phones even more than adults? I remember one day I just gave my phone to my nephew. Before I knew it, started pressing. He went to some areas I've never even thought about that existed on my BBM phone. When you see them, 2 or 3 of them gathered in school, they are probably watching a porn movie. I can tell you, we've been to schools where we had some programs before. When we saw them gathered, by the time we rushed to them, they will just quickly put it off, and you're asking them. By the time you ask the question over and over again, you find someone that will be able to tell you the truth. And I just saw them watching one film like that, one sex film, and I did told them to stop, but I started watching too. They will watch. So you've got to be careful what kind of phones that you give to them. You've got to be careful each time they pick your phone. They say they want to play a game. While they're playing the game, they just switch to something else. All those kind of pornographic movies and stuff that are on your phones, all those kind of movies they should not watch that have all the soft porns and all that, you have to be very careful. Charity begins at home. The kind of music they listen to enters their spirit. Let them listen to motivational, inspirational materials. Teach them. There are cartoons for children, are meant especially for children, and as they grow up, you begin to know their level. Ask their teachers, talk to counselors, so that they'll be able to tell you the kind of things that your child should watch at a particular age. And number 6 today on parental issues and parental tips is, once your child becomes suddenly withdrawn, a lively child suddenly becomes withdrawn to himself or to herself, you need to ask a lot of questions. That is the point where you have to come back home. You're too busy at work, you're too busy, you don't spend time with them. I can forgive you for that because you want to give them the best in life. But once you see your child, it's always happy, that is always enthusiastic whenever he or she sees you, and once that child becomes so withdrawn to himself, all of a sudden you have to be very careful. You have to pay special attention at that time. You see, children, they can kill themselves being frustrated when the parents are not there. A child can hear just one thing from his friend or from her friend in school. Maybe that one says, my parents spend the whole time with me. They buy ice cream for me. My mom is always giving me a kiss whenever I'm going to bed. Or there's no way I'll go to bed and my dad won't give me a good night, peck, good night. And your own child, you don't even have time for him. It may cause him to withdraw and begin to misbehave for the rest of his life. So when you see your child that has been spending so much time with you, that loves you, is not doing all those things again, that is the time to ask them questions. That is the time to pay more attention to them That is the time to show them love. That is the time to ask them what they want to become in future. That is the time, that is just the best time to go to them. Don't let it get to that level. But when it gets to that level that a child is withdrawing to himself, I will tell you, go straight for that child. Ask questions. Know what is really wrong with the child. I don't know, but I know that there are so many, 1,001, 1,000,001 things that could have influenced the child that is causing the child to withdraw. It could be that the child is getting sick or getting tired of something. Just be careful. Children are very, very sensitive, and you need to be sensitive when raising your kid. Finally today on the 7 Show with Lanre Afod, I'm talking about the 7 good parenting tips, how to become very good parents. Is teach your children sex education. Teach them, and teach them. You see, if you don't teach them these values, the world will teach them. And most of the time, when the world is teaching them, they teach them in the wrong way, and usually in the hard ways. I have heard about little girls talking to their neighbor or talking to somebody close to them and telling the man, like, I've heard about people talking about sex. What does sex mean? And sometimes you say, what is the meaning of romance? Or what's the meaning of KRS? I read it in one book, in one magazine like that. Even in the cartoons, some of those cartoons that are there are some pornographic cartoons and all of that. Say, I read it in one book where they talked about what's the meaning of sex. And if you don't teach them sex before that man teaches her about sex, it is going to be a big problem. So you've got to teach them from step to step. As they're growing older, there are some things that you should teach them. When the female folk, when they're getting older, there are some things you should teach her about sex. There are some things you should teach her about menstrual cycle and all of that. There are so many lessons. You can learn parenting from different areas. You can learn by reading books. You can go on the internet. You can ask elderly people. They will tell you about their experiences. But one thing I know for sure is if you don't teach your children about sex, the world is going to teach them. The safest place they can learn about it is not even in school, is with their parents. If you show your child love, your child is definitely not going to be flown here or there or be bamboozled by anybody anywhere. Okay, check out this scenario. Every time you take your child out, you take her in the car, you open the car for her to step down, she feels like a queen. You brought her up very well. And for the guys, you teach them the values, the moral values of life. They know everything. The mother teaches them well. They will know how to respect women. And then when you teach the girl, she will know how to respect men. Teach them the right things about sex. Teach them the right things about life. And definitely, you're on your way to success as a parent. This is the 7th tip on parenting from Lanre Afod, the 7 Show with Lanre Afod. Thank you for joining us again today. Next time, I'll give you another exciting episode as I always do. Thank you for being there. Mwah.